Alright, the trailer really won me over and I just had to watch the film Lucky Baskhar. Hello there, namaste. So Lucky Baskhar is actually a pretty interesting film. So it basically starts off with Baskhar. He's being arrested and he's kind of breaking the fourth wall, talking to the camera, explaining to you how he got to that point. And honestly, I found that kind of interesting. It kind of felt exciting going through that, because he gets arrested and then it stops breaking the fourth wall. He's brought into the bank, not the precinct, not the police precinct or anything. He's brought into the bank where they sit him down and look through his records and everything. They bring him in, start questioning him about his money and everything, and he finally looks at the camera, breaks the fourth wall once again, and the music and audio is so well placed because you can feel when they're about to do something. You can feel when the tension's about to build. You can feel when he's about to break the fourth wall. But he basically breaks the fourth wall and again is just like, let me tell you how I got here. And then we get a flashback. We get a flashback to him being completely poor. Him having to struggle with his son having only one t-shirt. Really, only one t-shirt. They can't afford a second one. His wife chose to marry him because she loves him. She was of a higher caste of family, I guess, or a wealthier family. So they did not approve of the marriage. She abandoned them to just be with him. She chose him over the family, which is what love should be about. It should be about the spouse more than your family. Family isn't important when you go on to make your own family. Sorry, I chose to sit here because this guy, we decided to sit in the chair, huh, boy? Huh. But yeah, you find out about his family. You meet his family. His father took a vow of silence because... Well, a vow of silence, but he hasn't spoken since his friends scammed him, took thousands of dollars or a ton of money from him, and ran away with it. So he took a vow of silence, and because his father was a successful accountant, which comes to play later. His wife was from a wealthy family. His son has only one t-shirt and a toy, which they have to gift to his wife's family, which is messed up. He has to take care of his younger brother, paying for his schooling. He has to take care of his younger sister. So he's basically the one taking care of everyone because his father took a vow of silence and is an accountant who is, I guess, disgraced in a way for being allowing himself to be taken advantage of. But it's so well done because Baskhar works at a bank and they hint at the fact that he's given several opportunities to do something corrupt, and he continues to say no, continues to say no, because a month away, someone's going to retire, and he's going to get the assistant management position, which is what he's looking forward to. Fast forward, he's not allowed the assistant manager position, and is completely pushed aside for it. So what does he do? He makes the dark deal. He makes the deal with the devil, and who turns out to be a nice guy. The guy he makes a deal with, who could possibly scam him, ends up being a good person, even though he's dealing with not counterfeit goods, but buying off customs agents and all that stuff in order to get goods across the seas just without having to pay the massive amounts of tax on them. So he learns a bit about that. And then it turns out, about an hour into the film, that guy retires, ends up making the deal of a lifetime, and leaves. Goes to America. Well, Baskhar decides to retire himself. He ended up getting promoted because the person that passed him over, turns out that he was passed over because the person was bribed him. So he ends up going to jail, or not jail or whatever, gets fired, and he ends up getting the top job. And this is where it gets interesting, because this is the point where it starts to make sense, because this is where the story actually comes about. The main director of the bank convinces him, tells him, oh, you need to take care of this person. You really need to take care of this person. He's a main earner for the bank. So there's this scene where two files are printed and one gets left behind. I am of the mind that he asked, and I kind of wish they would have hinted at it, but I guess it was an accident, but I don't think it was an accident. It's one of those things that are just, you made it seem like he knew from the beginning, but he doesn't completely know. Because he asked for 2 pieces of paper, and it turns out that he knew everything from the beginning. At that point in time where he reads both sheets of papers at about an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes into the film, that's when everything takes place. That's actually the start of the film, because that's when he's actually starting to take control, and that's where it falls back to at the end. Because when he's talking to the police agents, they know nothing about him stealing money from the bank to do these backdoor deals. They knew nothing about that. The only thing they knew about was the deals that he had from when he was promoted. Why? Because those police officers, or those raid officers, were corrupt. They were on the take as well. So it's insane that it says, oh, this is where it began, but that's just him narrating to us, because the stuff he was doing that was corrupt, the bank never knew about. So that right there, when he reads the second paperwork, that's where the film takes off, because that's where the raid agents, and that's where the bank knows that the corruption started. He became aware of what's going on from that moment onward, and he makes a deal to start getting paid, to start turning black money into white money, cleaning the dirty money. So he starts working towards that, making sure everything transitioned. His wife's dream was to create a business for herself, I guess pickling stuff. She wants to make a business for herself. So he ends up giving her that business so he could have more of a tax write-off in foreign goods and sales. So he ends up getting farther and farther and farther and wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, to the point where he starts being arrogant, which he believes is courage. He starts having too much pride, which he thinks is being... I forgot the word he used. But yeah, his wife calls him out on it. And it took his wife, because it does another flash forward to him interviewed, and the officer's basically asking him, because it was like, he was telling the officer, when you get too arrogant, God slaps you down. When you get to this, you get slapped down. And the person basically asked him, when do you get slapped? He got slapped by his wife, by being honest with him, telling him it's over, you need to stop this, I want my old Baskhar back, I want the man that I married, which should hit hard, because she chose to leave her family, abandon her family, her very narcissistic, very self-centered, very monetary-driven family, for love, which speaks volumes in the fact that she wanted him back. And he did try. I don't think he ever fully went back, but you can't fully go back after something like that. But that was the first slap. And then his father, who took a vow of silence, spoke to him. That was the second slap, which basically led to him, I kind of called it after 2 hours into the film that he leaked the information. 10 minutes after saying that, it turns out he leaked the information. Yeah, it's got a very interesting story. I like it. I like how he takes advantage of people. I can't say I like how he takes advantage of people, because it's one of those things where he took a gamble. And gamblers, 0.001% of gamblers actually succeed in getting what they wish. So it's more of a loss. In order for one person to succeed, just like with the crypto game, in order for one person to succeed, thousands of people have to lose their money in order for one person to make a profit. That's just how it works. It's just how it works. And he was making a profit off of tons of people losing. It's how it was, because he got into the stock market. That's how they were making their fortune. They were taking money from the bank, putting in the stock market, pumping up the sales to make it look like it was positive, which is why they were always late on returning the fees, because back in the day, it wasn't instantaneous like that. It was gradual. It took days, weeks, sometimes months for the stock market to raise high enough, because you're waiting for people to buy. So they were convincing tons of people to buy in at different stages to make it look like it was constantly going up. So when it peaks, they tell everyone to sell, and they end up with a huge profit, which that's illegal to begin with. But there were so many shady things, and he knew about it all from the very beginning. He did his research, which is absolutely fascinating about Baskhar. He didn't just jump at the first chances of corruption. He found out everything. And what's funny is his father, who was once scammed, was talking to him on how he could get out with all his money. Instead of talking his son into paying the punishment for his crimes, he's all right, you were successful where I wasn't. This is how you can successfully take all your money out. I was just like, you know what? I was kind of hoping it would be like a morality tale where it turned out where he learned to love money more than his family, because it started out with him needing money because of his family. And then it turned into the love of money. And I was hoping he would lose his family because he loved money too much. He would lose his family, but keep the love for money. and he would learn. It would be like a morality tale of that kind of thing. But it didn't turn out that way. It turned out to just be a movie about a guy who just got incredibly lucky. That's basically what it is. He got incredibly lucky, because the fact that something like this can happen, and the fact that he basically had to mention the things he did wrong beforehand, because no one would have been able to prove it. No one would have been able to prove it, because he took money one day, would return it by the next morning. He would take it, return it, take it, return it. But one last thing I gotta say is, like, his wife's family is, it was just like one of the worst things, because they refused to feed his son because, they refused to feed him as much as everyone else because, well, they're poor. Why would they give the poor kid food? He's probably used to not eating as much. His own, the lady's own mother or sister or whatever was trying to convince her to get a divorce and remarry because she's still young enough to. It's just all at their kid's wedding, not at Baskar's kid's wedding, but at his nephew's wedding on his wife's side. It was just so disgusting and despicable. But what's funny is when they go bankrupt, who do they go beg for money? Baskhar, because he's rich and wealthy at that point in time. They no longer, when they were in need of money and had asked for help, what'd they do? They ignored them. But they're expecting to be paid, and then she goes yelling at them about how can you go about this grudge, how can you be holding a grudge. Of course, when it's strange how people are like that. When they only view things from their own perspective, they refuse to acknowledge it from another perspective. It's only bad when it happens to them, not when it happens to others, that kind of thing. And that's the type of family it was. That was really the type of family she had, and it was despicable, absolutely despicable. I enjoyed kind of how it ended, because he spent a lot of money kind of buying off everyone in the bank to be on his side, being supportive of them, because this was apparently his father's plan. He was making deals, not deals, but just being positive with everyone, being polite with everyone, trying to make them seem like he's the good guy. But yeah, it was very well done. Based on a true story, I guess. Yeah, so very well done. I enjoyed it. You take advantage of the point in time. I'm pretty sure there are a ton of scams that go on right now that take advantage of the situation, like right now, like with crypto. But the majority of those are all scams. Yeah, it's just it's fascinating to see how he was there at the right point in time, was able to make a ton of money within a year, and able to buy a hotel in the United States, $25 million to buy a hotel, and shift his entire family and his entire life over to the U.S. That was just absolutely fascinating to watch and see and be like, yeah, he took advantage of that point in time, before things all became digital, because now almost everything is instantaneous, and he wouldn't be able to do what he did now because, well, there is no ledger. Everything is immediately uploaded into the system, so he wouldn't have been able to do the scam that he did at the very end of the film. Oh, great movie, great movie. But just be aware that gambling is an addiction. Alcohol is an addiction. It's the social media itself is an addiction. It's because there is this line about how he's a gambler and it's an addiction to him, but it doesn't really seem to carry through to the end of the film, because at the very end of the film, you see that he won, and he's clearly still doing something shady. But in the end, it was cool. It was cool to see it. It was like a Catch Me If You Can. It was like a Wolf of Wall Street. It was like one of those where you're rooting for the bad guy, even though they're not entirely a bad guy. In Catch Me If You Can, he was just a kid, which is funny. He's the same actor in The Wolf of Wall Street. Leo! Yeah, in The Wolf of Wall Street, he's just wanting to make a profit for himself, and because he's from nothing. Even in The Great Gatsby, he basically plays the same character. Dang, Leo needs to stop playing those roles. But yeah, Lucky Bhaskar, a good film. It's definitely worth the watch. Definitely worth the watch. No one people. One thing I need to say, because I heard people were getting motivated by this film. People shouldn't see this film and go out and change their lives according to it, because what happened in the early 90s, late 80s, cannot be done again in the 2020s. Thank y'all for watching. Talk to you next time. Doodles.